I just hit to go live, but there it says you're in live. Okay. Good evening and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host. And tonight we are going to talk about fighting CPS and how to get your children back. It's the show the podcast I do twice a day, 7 days a week. And I try to make each show different. I think having different guests on has really helped because we've had people from all walks of life and all kinds of CPS cases, and maybe there's something they say that can help you, or vice versa. I have been involved in CPS for 14 years. 3 of it was active, and so I'm well familiar about CPS and how they operate. And I had one of my 3 children stolen from them. It was initially was 3, but then I never got back that other one. So I know what the feeling is to love a loved one. Um, I have lost my home. I lost my job, and a lot of it's all because of CPS. So um, we're going to be able to hear from Gabriella in just a second here. I just want to tell people out there listening that if you want to text a comment, please do so. Just put your name and your city and state. And if you're from other countries, feel free to text something, because we've had Australia and Canada, United Kingdom, and Ghana be on the show. So countries are having the same problem that we in the United States have with CPS. And so make sure that you put your name in the city, in the country or state, and then you want to fill something about your allegations and um, and your children and your relationships. Relationships are important. If you're a single parent, or you're working with a spouse, or you guys are divorced, or you're separate, or going through a custody battle, that all helps a little bit there. Um, so you can text a comment at the bottom of the YouTube video. This is found on Facebook, but we're transmitting on YouTube, and we're using an application called StreamYard, StreamYard.com. It's a good application that allows me and my guests to be on the screen. It allows several people to be at one time, and so our sole purpose. This is sponsored by Vincent W. Davis and Associate, and he that law firm has a lot of legal help. They have a lot of different lawyers in different areas. They're in Southern California, but in CPS you're going to deal with family law, dependency court, dependency law, juvenile, and we do have a lawyer that is Vincent W. Davis that right now is offering a free consultation. I mean, that's exciting to get something free for 30 minutes up to an hour, and he'll talk about the strategies of how to fight CPS and get your children back. All you would have to do is, my office number there is 888-888-6582. You call in and say that Bob Pace sent me, and you ask the people that answer it, I'd like to have a consultation with Vincent Davis, a free consultation. And if you mention my name, that will make it free for you. Also, when you see Mr. Davis, I want you to tell him that Bob Pace sent you, so that he knows that I am reaching out to people and send him his way. And he'll go over the strategies and how to get back. If you like them, retain them. There are lots of attorneys out there. One of the biggest problems people have is money. I did too. And you may have to deal with your public defender, which the courts will give you when you get to dependency court. At first, you won't have a attorney, and at first you're going to be starting with allegations that come in. And my rule number 1 is get an attorney. I've already said that. Rule number 2 is get a notebook, put down the date and time and the people that were involved, and a little bit about what the incident was, and then you want to write the outcome. The outcome may come 1 month, 2 months, 3 years, whatever it is, but you have that notebook, everything. And my third rule is to not talk to social workers. It's a yes/no type communication with them, because they will get you in trouble. They are very deceitful, at least in my case. And the majority of the people I've talked to over 100 people in different states. So, you don't want to say, and you don't let them in your home, because they will trick you and do things that will make your life better. You don't have to. Same goes for the police. They'll try to strong arm the police, use deception tactics, and try to force you to open up your home or to talk to them. They need a warrant if they want to come into your home or talk to you. They need a warrant. They need a warrant to search warrant, and it has to be endorsed by a judge in court. The courts are only open Monday through Friday, so don't let them trick you on the weekend that, oh, I got a warrant. It has to be signed by the judge, and it's got to be specific who they're investigating and what are the allegations and whether they say you're home or so forth. But if you get an attorney, it'll make your life a lot easier. So I'm anxious to see what Gabriel has to say. Go ahead, Gabriel. Introduce yourself. Gabriella. I'm sorry, Gabriella.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle, and I had started dealing with CPS around August of 2023 here in South Carolina. Um, with regard to my son, I'm a single parent. Very contentious divorce process that went through in 2022 with my ex-husband, and he has his fiance and stuff. It was his girlfriend at the time and stuff while we were going through our divorce. They have like multiple kids together and things of that nature, but with my son, a lot of things kicked off back in 2022. But I have lived in New York State, and father lived in Pennsylvania. So initially, I tried to report certain things in New York State. They wouldn't accept it because things were going on in Pennsylvania that I was trying to report. Pennsylvania would not accept it because they wanted my son to be there. So that kind of went on actually until August of 2023 because I moved to South Carolina in April. And we had been going through a custody battle through New York State even after I had moved, which the court attorney referee did not have any jurisdiction over the case, but she abused her power and authority anyways. So we were flip flopping back and forth once a month from South Carolina to Pennsylvania, and my son was coming back demonstrating highly concerning hypersexualized behaviors. He's autistic and he has ADHD.
Okay.
Um, and he also was going to school and kind of projecting those things onto peers. And he was drawing certain things, and then he started saying certain things. Um, and he was receiving therapeutic services down here for his autism and stuff. And they had even noted, and I provided a report to the court up in New York, regarding these behaviors. And I reported it to New York as well. Nobody did a thing up in New York. But South
What was
Carolina, I ended up having to take my son
mhm.
on August 25th to be STD tested. The
What was
hospital
the
guy.
thing that your ex-husband was doing to your child?
So, showing him how to use a camera to record himself to stick his fingers up his anus. He had said to my dog that she could suck his penis. And these were things that I reported, and he had drawn a one of his peers from school, and it had a dinosaur behind this child in a very compromising position, but the dinosaur had a penis and testicles. Um, and those things were extremely concerning. So the first time I called in CPS, which was that August 25th when I took him to the hospital to get the STD testing done, because he had come back from one of his visitations with oral thrush and a fever of 104. And we
Wow.
were driving down to. So I was like, all right, I'm I work in a nursing field, so I know what certain things look like and what they can be. So I was like, all right, these behaviors were starting to kind of just accumulate after each time that he was with um, the other party. And his fiance was actually court ordered not to be around my son, which nobody wants to acknowledge, even in this DSS case. And I was like, okay, because my son had um, explained that the fiance, was showing him her penis. Yes, I know that doesn't, but he was able to describe that. And because I asked him what he looked like. Now, mind you, we have um, certain ways that we speak to our kid, like have to talk to kids with autism and ADHD, which does not equate to stupid. I have ADHD myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was able to demonstrate, because I started asking him, I said, well, what did daddy do? What did this person do? Like, what are, like, so, because he will show you better than he can tell you. And he demonstrated some acts that would be seen during, intercourse, to put it plainly. And I was like, okay. And I had asked him. He had told me that they like to play the bad game and the hippo game. And so the more I'm getting more and more horrified. But the first time DSS came to my home, I showed them the videos. I showed them, the drawings that he made, and I told them what he was saying and everything. And I told them the last time that he had been around these people, and I explained to them how they were violating the court order. However, the court attorney from New York would not release this order to me, um, in order to even be able to show DSS or show the school that he was attending what was going on and why he was missing so much school, because we had to keep on going back and forth 10 hours with a disabled child.
Hmm.
Um,
How old is he? How old is he?
he's 6.
And how old was he at the time he's being exposed to all this?
It started at 4, but 6 is where
Wow.
the real manifestations have started to come in. And so I told them all of this, and they said, well, where's dad? Dad's in Pennsylvania. Okay. So it's kind of hard to investigate cross states, right? So eventually the investigation kind of dies down, because I took him for the forensic pediatric investigation and everything. The SED testing, actually, the hospital that tested him lost the lab results for the urine test. They
Oh
tested his
boy.
urine, but not for what they were supposed to. So that was interesting. And I was like, wow, that's ironic and convenient. So I was like, okay. And then I spoke with the now I'm thinking, because all of these acts combined together would make a logical and reasonable human being say, okay, we need to really take a look into this.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. They had closed the case out in South Carolina and said that they were sending it up to Pennsylvania to be investigated, which I don't believe to be true. But either way, I got the paper that said the case was closed in South Carolina, yada, blah, blah, we're done. And I was like, okay, because I still have to deliver my son to this person. Okay. So about 2 months later, I called CPS in again, because he had come home from a visitation, and he finally was comfortable enough. And this is when he started, really actually telling me verbally what was going on. And so I took him into school the next day. This was the 28th and into the 29th of November of 2023. I took him into the school and I said, hey, this is what's going on. This is what he's telling me. This is what he's demonstrated to me. So they
Mhm.
called the police, and they recorded what he said. They took a report. They advised me to call Pennsylvania CPS, as well as file a report up in Pennsylvania. And so I did. I filed that report, and I got a notification this time that they were actually opening up an investigation in Pennsylvania, probably because I actually filed a police report this time.
Mhm.
Um, but I spoke with the DSS worker here in South Carolina, which actually happened. The investigator on the case happened to be the same one from the first case when I called the first time. And I didn't put two and two together until a little bit later. But this DSS worker was actually family to my landlords.
Okay.
Um, so that was very interesting, because I spoke with her on December 1st. I didn't hear anything again. Because I spoke to another DSS worker to assist Pennsylvania with their investigation, and she was like, "Okay, yeah, like you definitely need to get that straightened out, because all this is going on while court is going through New York State, who does not have jurisdiction. So we're trying to get everything straightened out down here."
Right. Right.
And so the second caseworker was very confused on December 6th when my son showed up at the center. Um, because the first one came and she had filed an order. I had not heard anything after I made the report. However, I know actually for a fact that she spoke with the other parties and then just made this unilateral decision that my son should be removed from my home because she listened to her emotional side of things because they perpetually play the victim of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got paper served, but right before I got paper served that were saying that my son was getting taken away, but nobody was at my door. And I was so very confused because I'm like, I'm actually scared to open up my front door at this point. And then I got a knock on my door because I was looking at these papers and I'm like, what the? So she comes in and she's my son is eating on the couch. He had just come home because he had pink eye. He actually got pink eye at therapy, but I had just picked him up early and brought him home from therapy. We were eating dinner
Mm-hmm.
and she was there to take my son. And there was an ex parte hearing scheduled for the 7th of December, 2023. And dad, during this hearing, we were notified that dad had not actually been served. So the fact that his fiance messaged my family members that I hadn't spoken to in months, but
Mm-hmm.
they forwarded me the text messages that they knew that my son was being removed from my home, but I didn't know.
Okay.
And so then we had our pre-marriage hearing on December 21st of 2023 because the ex parte hearing did not go very well because I was just kind of lost in the sauce. I'm like, I just couldn't understand how. So they assigned a guardian ad litem as well. Um, and this guardian ad litem happens to go to the same church that I go to, that me and my son went to.
All
And her
right.
children also go to that same church and have interacted with my child.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting when it happened that on the 21st, my son was sent up unsupervised. The first time he has ever been unsupervised for more than because my ex-husband was required to have supervised visits per the previous order that was only changed on December 12th
Okay.
of 2023.
All right.
So he came back from there because the judge that presided over the premerits did order him back. However, during this premerits case, the investigator had tried to lie because the allegations that they had against me, which were that they were worried that I was showing him explicit material, and even the kind of custody that we share was wrong in their order. The dates were wrong. The agency was concerned about exposure to adult entertainment is resulting in Kane displaying inappropriate sexual behaviors. The kicker is dad and his fiance participate in pornography. Actually, publicly. This is public knowledge. This is publicly visible, viewable, and
Oh,
everything. So I found it highly entertaining, but not funny at the same time. It's more of a laugh or you'll cry. So
good.
when he came back, I'm sorry, excuse me, got out of line. So the original investigator had told the judge, as well as my attorney, in order to get my son pushed up to the other party, that the forensic pediatric investigation indicated me. However, on February 9th or 12th, I believe it was. No, I'm sorry, January 12th. There was a foster care meeting because my son was placed. He was placed with a close friend, a close husband and wife. And so he had all his toys and everything. He was in foster care for a short set for about 2 weeks, in which I didn't really have any communication with anybody from DSS at all. They've kind of been steering clear of me at this point because I think they realize they're not dealing with your average like bubble brain. But they told them that that had implicated me, but I found out they had not even had the forensic pediatric investigation results for the premerits hearing, which means they perjured themselves right then and there by telling both the judge and the other attorneys and everybody in the room that they had that. Okay.
Oh
So
boy.
Yeah, it gets better. So my ex-husband, because they are bringing allegations against me and decided that they were going to clear him without looking at any of this factual evidence at all.
What were the
Of the
allegations they were trying to make against you?
So this is the agency is concerned that the exposure, as of November 28th, that the minor child's next court order visit with his father begins December 23rd. The agency is concerned that Miss Gabrielle Daniels has been showing the minor child, Kane Daniels, pornography videos and inappropriate pictures of Donovan Daniels and his fiance. The agency is concerned that the exposure to adult entertainment is resulting in Kane displaying inappropriate sexual behaviors. There's also a concern because Kane Daniels, excuse me, my son is autistic, um, and was able to see a video of conversation between myself and my child where I was laughing about sexual mannerisms with the child, which it was not a laughing matter. I was talking to my child and asking him, "Hey, what did daddy do?" And I was in shock at what my child was demonstrating. And my son also named his stuffed animal after his father's pornography altar because they use fake names. Um, Now, all things considered, we moved on. Like with these videos and stuff, I had brought this to light during my divorce and said, hey, like there's some shifty things going on in the home. DSS was involved with these parties in Pennsylvania already because one of their children that they had together tested positive for cocaine at birth. I don't know how they still have all of their children after this, but it was kind of concerning. And that's actually what granted me supervised visits, as well as this person, his fiance, not having being allowed to be around my child. So that was in 2022 that order was enforced in January 2022. Now we cut to this year when that was only altered again in December. And when we moved towards the we were in the pre-merits hearing or the merits hearing on the 25th, and at this point I finally have a public defender, DSS defender, somebody retained by DSS, and she really wasn't very helpful because she wasn't looking at anything that I was sending her, which was clearly evident in the way that she defended things. And I was like, okay, that's all right. So during the merits hearing, um, the father had actually submitted a motion to regain custody. However, my son was already established here. He was with a close family friend. I, from what I understand, could not. I don't think that I'm not really sure if I could or could not petition the court for him to be returned while they have their allegations out. But during the merits hearing, that was pushed to February 8th. And during this hearing on February 8th, it was a different judge, actually, that was looking at this case and the motion. My ex-husband's attorney spewed a whole bunch of lies that my ex-husband told him through the motion, which was for the first 3 years of my son's life that he lived with him, his mother, and somebody else or whatever, which was irrelevant because we were married for the first 3 years of my child's life. And we were living in New York together for the first year and a half.
Did you have a marriage certificate?
I do. I sure
Well,
do.
did you show the marriage certificate to the court, show that you were married?
So this is where I was very confused at what my lawyer was doing because she did not say a word to defend that. And I was like, after a certain point of sitting there looking stupid, very, very stupid, because my lawyer didn't take the time to go over the things that I had sent her that were disputing this. she told me, well, I submitted the affidavit to the judge. And I was like, okay, but that looks really bad if my attorney didn't even read the affidavit that was sent to her. That looks really, really bad on both parts.
Hmm.
Um, and so ultimately they decided to, because they also said, oh, well, they have a school set up, they have medical care set up, they have this therapy set up, all the things he was already getting here in South Carolina, they had set up over in Pennsylvania, supposedly. I
Hmm.
don't know how or where or when this was verified. And even the judge had asked prior to this, like, what do you have on this? What do you have to support your allegations?
Yeah.
DSS had to restaff the case because they did see the affidavit, which was submitted on the 25th, even though it wasn't heard.
Hmm.
So they know that the original investigator was a huge conflict of interest. So DSS had said, we don't take any position on whether the child should go with dad or not because, they had to restaff the case. However, the guardian ad litem and her attorney were jumping over the table, essentially, almost to, well, mostly her attorney was jumping over the table to have my son pushed to Pennsylvania, pushed to this person. And I'm not really sure why. So I was trying to figure out how all this worked because there was a whole bunch of hearsay and conjecture that made no sense because the judge had asked again what the attorney was going off of, the guardian ad litem who was pushing for my son to go up to Pennsylvania. And apparently there's apparently some one of the videos that I sent or was concerning to them against me, and I'm not really sure because I sent them a lot of stuff uh, again because I'm thinking they're going to help me and my child.
Yeah.
And the DSS workers were like, "We didn't see a video. We don't know what you're talking about." And so, and the attorney for the guardian ad litem kept on going, "Yes, you did. You saw the," and we're all sitting there like watching a ping pong match because DSS stood firm. We don't know what you're talking about. So this had all been based on the guardian ad litem's recommendation, who had no proof of any of the services that were offered or anything else. So now my child is in Pennsylvania with the person that he verbally stated that he's afraid of and doesn't want to be around, and had actively voiced that they had showed him things that they were making him feel uncomfortable. And we're waiting for a trial now on April 20th. So everybody's just kind of sitting with their thumb up their rear, and I'm really not sure because this is such a convoluted case that, and my head is still spinning, to be quite frank.
Hmm.
But that's the gist of my story right now. Hmm.
Yeah.
Because the judge also didn't order any physical visitation, but she had put video chats in the order, which I won't video chat with the other party at this point because DSS and the guardian ad litem and their attorney have all been lying. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense for me to do, to put myself in that position right now with there clearly being something odd in the pudding.
Well, okay. First of all, this case you said started in Columbia, South Carolina,
Hmm.
and and uh, the allegations there, were they ever finalized before it moved to Pennsylvania?
The allegations were not finalized before they moved the child out of state to Pennsylvania. It's temporary custody, but
Well, there's a form called a 388. It's a petition that you want to change jurisdiction. Did you get the case changed from Columbia, South Carolina to the city in Pennsylvania, the county?
jurisdiction is still in South Carolina. They only gave temporary custody to the other party.
So where
It's
you living in? You're living in Pennsylvania or South Carolina?
I'm living in South Carolina. I'm
Okay.
still here in South Carolina.
And they still have
And
the jurisdiction of your child, right?
yes, but under the UCJEEA, and because he was technically in foster care after he was removed from my home, that's what they had used in order to get him up to Pennsylvania.
Oh boy, this is a hard one. Um,
Mhm.
what were the allegations against you? I mean, what were they? Just because you were showing them something? Is that what you were saying?
That's what they're saying, is that they were
And
concerned
what
about
and,
me showing
and what
him.
and what proof do they have that you're showing something?
Apparently, one of the some video that nobody has seen that
Was it taken by nanny cam? Was it taken by your ex-husband illegally? Maybe.
there's nothing to see, to be honest, because I didn't show my child anything. So I'm really
Right.
confused as to where they're getting this from. And that's why I'm like, I don't understand why nobody's hearing this. That's in the court system, that's in the judicial system. I'm like,
Well, what is the court right now? What is the plan right now? What is the current plan you have in place right now?
they have no plan. It's just they have no plan. The plan was to have, where is it? Actually, I have it. Give me one second. I have it right here. Because they had the bench order. So they had, this is an action before the court. Temporary legal and physical custody of minor child granted to father with the authority consent to medical treatment and be designated as the said minor's personal representative, as set out in Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act and regulations. Visitation between the minor children and defendant, um, shall have child available for video calls on Tuesday and Friday from 6:30 to 7:30.
Now, are you the
Formal order to
defendant?
follow.
Are you considered the defendant?
Both of us are, because both of our names are actually on this docket here in South Carolina.
But then where were you guys? Okay, when did the divorce get finalized?
The divorce was finalized in New York. I lived with my child in New York for about well, since he was born, we lived in New York. Dad had to move to Pennsylvania because dad and I split. I filed for divorce in 2020, but dad had to move because he got kicked out of the military and he had to go back and live with his mom.
Well, do you have the divorce decree?
I sure do. I have
Well,
every
what
piece of
is
paper.
I know that, but I'm trying to say is that if the divorce decree shows you're divorced, why are they still involving the father, who you told me right now has criminal charges against him?
He doesn't have criminal charges. Made the police report. I don't know if anybody ever even investigated it, but I do know that when South Carolina brought this motion for removal of my child, they put both of our names on this South Carolina defendant, or as defendants.
Well, wait a second. This was in CPS court, not in criminal court.
Right. Plaintiff is
Okay.
South Carolina
Well,
Department of Social Services.
the showing the kids pornography or having the kids uh, do sexual relationships with their dad, that's a criminal matter. And that should be the city attorney in Columbia. You need to contact the office and ask them what are they doing about that, because they should be pressing criminal charges, and it's a felony. It's a felony against your husband.
Yep.
Something is really. Have you talked to the city attorney where this took place in Columbia?
I'm not. You're talking about the district attorney, like
Well, it could be the city attorney. It could also be the district attorney. I don't
no,
know what has
I
to do.
have not, because I've just been trying to figure out my way around this huge mess of.
Well, I'm just trying to say, if there are allegations that you've made to a police officer,
Mhm.
they need to be investigated by the police department. That detective needs to turn a report to either the district attorney or the city attorney for prosecution against that gentleman.
Hmm.
It's
Interesting.
well, okay. It's a fine line. CPS can investigate things, but in sexual matter, that's very severe, and
Hmm.
the city can do that investigation. It's
Well,
a
it's
it's
been
it's a
reported
felony
to.
charge. If you made that thing, the detective, have you talked to the detective at the police department that took that report?
So it was it was the peace officer at my son's school that took my report, and then there was a detective that was assigned to the case in
Well, what he
Pennsylvania, but I don't know what he did or if he did anything at all.
well, he
You
won't
know,
be the person because this happened in Carolina. It didn't happen in Pennsylvania.
no, the acts against my child happened in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's from Lost. So they did not happen in South Carolina then.
That's correct, which is why I'm sitting here very confused because again, like how do you put a child out of state when you have no idea what you're doing or what's going on in South Carolina to begin with?
Well, if the act occurred in Pennsylvania, it's what city in Pennsylvania is this?
Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, so it's like Luzerne County,
It's a real
Wyoming County.
small. It's a real small city, isn't it?
Oh yes, very small town.
Yeah. Well, you need to call the district attorney in Pennsylvania. You need to call them and ask them what is the status of the charges that you made that you reported to and you need to find out who the detective that was assigned to the case. What was his findings?
I do actually know the name of the detective that was assigned to the case. I just wasn't sure if I. That was where I was scared because I'm like, with the way that DSS had turned this all around and basically screwed it to high heaven.
Well, I
I
don't know
wasn't.
how they would turn it because usually CPS, uh, if there's accusation of sexual charges, they're going to wait to see how the criminal court handles that, whether they're going to press charges and find the guy guilty and of sexual charges. I mean, he has one count of sexual charges against his child, and if the fiance was involved, or his wife or girlfriend, where it is, she also can be charged if she had something to do with it too.
Well, I
See,
guess I'm gonna have to look into that.
someone's dropped the ball there. I know
Oh
you're
yeah.
worried because you think if you make waves, they're going to retaliate against you. If you didn't do anything to your son, I mean, you weren't in Pennsylvania, so how could you do something to your son?
Well, they were trying to say that this was all of a sudden, and it was all just so happened that it was every time he came back from visiting them, which it was, because he
Well,
come
no,
back to me in South Carolina.
you got the initial detective. You when you made the report, that's your date. So if you
Hmm.
made the report in 2021, that'd be the date that they would use. I mean, it sounds like someone has either really messed up or that your ex-husband has power somewhere or he's paid people off because it sounds like a complete corruption there.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
How
Even in New
how
York State.
how it works in California is that when CPS investigates things, um, they will, pursue it, investigate it, and then do a plan, and they do the family reunification, and also try to keep the family members together and keep them with your family. You can stay with your family, your aunts and uncles, brothers, whatever that's old than 18. But sometimes when a detective is assigned, because CPS will use the police, and the police have to investigate it also. If there was sexual charges, that detective would have filled out there, made his recommendations to the district attorney. The district attorney would charge that gentleman with sexual charges, which is a felony.
Hmm. I know how I like. That's what I was thinking. Like this is how it should work. But everybody around me, and even the people that I'm saying this to, are acting
Mhm.
like they don't have any common sense to really actually see this.
Well, the problem is you're dealing with three different areas. You're dealing with New York, uh, South Carolina, and Pennsylvania.
Well, New
There's a
York is
timeline.
theoretically out of the picture
I know,
now.
but you can put a timeline on a piece of paper and
Mhm.
timeline everything. That would help you present your case to people. You can say that I was divorced in New York. I went with my child that was given custody of in the divorce. Did the divorce case give you custody of the child?
I had sole custody of my child.
All right. You take that paperwork, and this is what you need to do. You need to construct a timeline, and you need to put down the earliest it was evolved, when you guys got married, when the child was born, when the divorce went into effect, when the allegations came up, whether in New York, whether in South Carolina, or whether in Pennsylvania. So you build this timeline so that you have this long period, and that will help you organize your thoughts and what you need to do. But typically speaking, if there's sexual accusations, especially they're well documented, the police department will send a detective to investigate it. They're very much interested in that. They want to protect the children. And the detective will write his report and send it on to the district attorney, who's going to make a decision whether he wants to file criminal charges against the person that was a, that was the perpetrator, who I think was your husband. Now,
Mhm.
somehow there's some wishy-washy, some things taking place. So, okay, when you're in New York, you were involved with CPS.
No,
All right. When you're in New York, were you guys married at first? Right?
we were married in New York.
Right. Now, was your child born in New York?
Yep.
And were you divorced in New York?
We were divorced. We were married in Pennsylvania. My child was born in New York,
Oh, oh,
and remained there. We moved to New York very shortly after because that's where my ex-husband got stationed. I stayed there after we had our child and everything. He was born in 2017 and inside of New York, and he's been in around New York until April of 2023.
okay.
Father had lived in Pennsylvania since 2008, the end of 2018, right into
You see,
2019.
you see how important it would be to put a timeline with all this? Because it helps you visualize. And then you can see the jurisdiction and you can see the things in there. Because right now, you need to get a hold of that police detective and find out what was his investigation. You need to see that
Mhm,
report. It's public record. He can see that report. And you need to also call the district attorney and ask them, did they get a report and any recommendation? You need to find all that out because you can use that information against your former husband.
mhm.
And then you can also use that to get your child back through CPS. And especially if you have the information, there's a form called the Petition 388. It's a form when you have new evidence or you want to submit something to the judge and have the judge look at it or change your plan. So um, I know you're dealing with public defenders, but you got to find a public defender that'll work for you. If you don't like the one you have, you can get another one. If you don't like that one, you get another one.
They
And they
told
have,
me that I couldn't get another one assigned.
yeah, you have to talk to the public defender's office. You see,
That's who
this
told me.
they told you what was the reason because.
They don't have one. That we don't do that. That was the reason.
Well, then you need to go to the supervisor in the public defender's office, or you need to go whoever supersedes the public defenders.
Mhm,
This is where you got to be really hard, and it's really hard because you have a lot going on in your case. You have a lot going on in your case,
mhm,
and I'm trying to visualize this without a timeline. See, that's would be the most important thing I want to do is do a timeline, so I see where everything mixes, and I can find, you know, the puzzle can help me better there because there's now allegations that you supposedly you introduced your child to pornography. Is that what the allegations are from the CPS people?
yeah.
Now, is that from the Pennsylvania CPS or is that from the South Carolina CPS?
South Carolina CPS.
Okay, South Carolina. So the only reason why Pennsylvania is involved is that's where your ex-husband lives with his fiancee,
Mhm.
and that's where your son was living with him for a period of time, right?
He was on for honestly since 2021. He's only been there periodically. He was there like he would be with my ex-husband's mother. He was with my ex-husband's mother at least once a month for the whole year of 2022 because the court order was supervised visits with dad once a month in Pennsylvania as parties could mutually agree and arrange. But as I was working and stuff, my son was at his mother's home and his father only asked to see him 5 times while he was there that I know of. But I was still in New York,
Hmm.
like I living and working and everything else in New York.
Hmm.
So his father has because this is not really something that has been about my child for him to begin with. And that's kind of what I've been fighting. I've been fighting the principalities of everything because it's like as soon as um, I get through one thing with my son in custody in court and stuff like that, we're back at it. We're back in it. And there's been like the court attorney referee who made the order in New York, well, one of them, because she made three different temporary orders. One of them was that I couldn't talk about it or anything outside of the courtroom. And this is a court attorney referee who has a pedophile as a husband. So convicted felon, public knowledge, who ran for family court judge. This is a person presiding over a family court who can't have a family. So
Well,
naturally,
well, when you have corrupt individuals, that makes your case even harder because then you have to go to the governor or your congressman and
mhm,
make some changes because you have a lot of things going on there. You have
yeah,
corrupt judges, corrupt things there. Because see, Superior Court is where the criminal courts are held. Dependency Court and Family Court are in Superior Court. Then there's Supreme Court of the state, and then there is the Supreme Court of the federal government. So the way the court systems work is that criminal matters are held in Superior Court, and then they have a dependency court that will handle the CPS investigation, and then you got the family court that will handle divorce and so forth. So and you got juvenile court. I just don't know how South Carolina is set up. I don't know how New York's set up or Pennsylvania, but it sounds like there's nothing in New York that will help you there. It seems like the things that happen were happening in Pennsylvania. No, in South Carolina. But I don't know what Pennsylvania can really do for you there. Is there a CPS case open in Pennsylvania?
they closed they closed their CPS case in Pennsylvania because they were working with South Carolina through interstate or whatever. Um, but again, like this, there was the detective on the case called and asked about pediatric forensic investigations and everything, and investigated nothing else. Like I didn't speak to me or anything else like that. So I'm just sitting here. I'm like, what are you investigating? Like nothing. So look, I've also dealt with CPS in Pennsylvania. I have. And I became a victim of the system because of that. When I was my son's age, this is actually like history repeating itself. So it's like, you know, they expect kids to be running and screaming away from parents, but I was a clinger child. So when CPS would be called to my parents' house after her boyfriends beat us, she would have they would notify, and my mom would clean up the house, make sure there's food in the cabinets, and then beat us when they left.
Wow.
So like this is there's just a flaw in the system as a whole. And I thought with time that had gotten better, or even with different states, but New York, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina all dropped the ball, all of them.
Well, I
And
think it's across the country. CPS is very corrupt, very
mhm,
deceptive. They lie. They're not. accountable. They're not transparent. I can go on and on. They do a child trafficking because they want the children in their custody so that they can get money off those childs. Every month they get checks from the federal government and for the state to take care of that child, and the money they get is outrageous. I mean, it's more than $20,000 per child per month,
Hmm.
and it's a billion-dollar business. Now, people say not all CPS are bad. Well, it's funny. Over 100 people that have been on my show, I've not heard any of them that say this has been a good CPS or a good this or good that. I hear the judges are corrupt in the dependency courts. The judges aren't qualified. My judge wasn't. He only had experience in collision and auto damage. And wow, wow, that's so. Yeah, you got a hard one. I think the timeline may help you. That's one thing I would do. I strongly recommend a timeline because
Hmm.
you have so many different things going on. You need to put them all down there. So, you just need to make a list of all your dates, where you're located, and what was transpiring. Then you can stand back and look at them. Now, if Pennsylvania CPS case is closed, don't worry about Pennsylvania. So, what is open right now? You have the investigation by the detective on the sexual things with your son, with your ex husband, right?
That's in Pennsylvania. I don't know whether that's open, closed, if report has been
No, no,
filed or
no.
anything
You
like
need you need to contact the district attorney or the city attorney and find out. I mean, you said you have the detective's name, you have the incident when it was investigated. You want to know what happened to that incident. What was the outcome?
that. Hmm.
You know, if he
And
wasn't
then,
charged because there wasn't sufficient evidence, then it's gonna be really hard on you because you got to prove it. And I don't know how old it is. Again, your timeline will tell that. But
oh, that's only since November. And
okay.
the detective was only placed on it in January of
This
this year.
year, wow.
Hmm.
Well, then you need to get a hold of him because that could really open up your eyes. Because if that detective found out that he was doing that and he made a recommendation to the district attorney to file uh, criminal charges against your ex-husband. That's what they'll do. If there's sufficient evidence of sexual, charges with that,
Misconduct.
that is a criminal matter, and that can be charged there. Yes, CPS investigate, but CPS is going to wait to the criminal courts take care of him first, which is sad
Because
because they should put you with your children with you, especially if he's on allegations of doing sexual charges against your son. So they should put the child with you because unless you've been charged by the district attorney or you have a criminal matter against yourself, it sounds all you have is a CPS allegations.
yeah, CPS allegations. That's it. And so that's why I was confused because I was like, that doesn't prove me an unfit parent. And
No,
there
no,
is
no, no.
no.
And there's things called family reunification. They're supposed to, if you had some hiccups, they're supposed to fix your hiccups and get back with your family. That's what family unification is. But CPS doesn't want to do that because it takes away their chance to make money. $1 billion business, and they don't want to lose that one child because multiply a child times 500 children that are in custody, that's a lot of money
Mhm.
every month that comes in until they're out of the system or until they turn 18. That's why they hope they get adopted in foster care because foster care will have them and then the money will still keep coming in until the child's 18.
Well, this was the thing. They're probably thinking that they were going to try and do something with my parental rights and everything, which that's why I couldn't understand why my lawyer, the public defender, but again, she's retained by DSS, was standing there basically twiddling her thumbs while my ex-husband's lawyer was talking, and even the guardian, the CASA attorney was talking because she there was 100% chance that my child would have still been in South Carolina and or with me had she opened her mouth.
Okay.
So But this is what I have been dealing with because it's not even something that really one can even attempt pro se because there's just so many facets. But contacting the district attorney and figuring out about the detective and the investigation in Pennsylvania would probably be very, very helpful.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what lawyers are you retaining right now? Do you still have your public defender?
I have a public defender because when you call the private attorneys around here in South Carolina and you say DSS, they're like, "Oh, we don't take those cases."
Well, that's because they are corrupt. I know Vincent Davis, is you need a fighter. And my attorney, Vincent Davis, is one. Now, he does do out of state, but you're talking some big bucks. So
Oh yeah.
he's from Southern California, and his retention takes an account of the distance, the accommodations he has to have there while he's working on the case, and then you'll look at the complexity of your case and how long the case has been going on. Your complexity is different jurisdictions and things left hanging, like that detective should have made a recommendation to the district attorney to make charges against your ex-husband. That's what he
Mhm.
should have found. If he didn't find anything, it's going to be pretty hard. It's your word against your ex-husband's word. But if there's pictures or things that you can say there, also if they interview your son, he might be able to tell them things too. You said there's a picture of a dinosaur that was in a compromised position and so forth. So something
Mhm.
has happened to your son. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I feel so bad for you. This is a tough case that you have. I don't know if I'm coming up with solutions to you or not, because I'm not an attorney, by the way. I'm an analyst, and I can sit there and look at things. I know the court systems. I know how to work around the law system and stuff. I know about certain forms and so forth. But if you have new information, you need to enter it into court. You need to get your child back. If you complete all your parenting class, that's new information.
They
So
didn't
if
even give those. They didn't, nothing, literally nothing. I've heard nothing from CPS, even after my child, nothing.
so, what's stopping you from getting your child?
I didn't know if I like, because that's what I had asked the public defender. I was like, okay, so if he could file for an emergency motion to remove my child from foster care, why wouldn't I be able to file for custody? So that's, I guess, where I
What
was
does the
confused.
public defender say?
Nothing.
Was that a
Like,
man? Was that a man or a woman?
it's a woman. Um,
Well, you sometimes have to be a little harsh on your attorneys there. You say that if you can't do it, then I'm going to have to replace you. Of course, you've already heard from the public defender's office. They don't have any other public defenders to give you, which is I'm used to being in California. There's lots of people out here, so it's a little
I'm
different
used
than
to being in any other state that, like,
yeah.
in every other court system that is like, yes, you should be able to have, you have the right to accurate and thorough legal representation. So I don't know how they can deny you a public defender that's actually going to defend you.
Okay, I have somebody just came in with a text message. Milland Lilly. He asked, "How long can it take for unification?" Well, they're supposed to be the case over in 48 days. It's 24 hours to investigate it, and then they have the detention court, and your case is supposed to take no more than 48 days. But they can come up with ways to delay it. He says that he has court tomorrow morning. I love to attend tomorrow night's show. Sorry, busy. You're welcome to come tomorrow night. Again, you can call in at 888-888-6582 and schedule a time to be on my show, one of my shows. So tell them that Bob Pace sent you. What does projective completion date mean? That is their estimated time that they will have the case over with. That is not 48 days. August 23rd is longer than that. So that's the mean. That means that they're projected that you'll finish all your parenting classes there at Melanie Lilly. And what city and state are you from, Melanie Lilly? Anyway, my time is up. I is slowly approaching this 1 hour. I only have a 1 hour window slot. But I want to thank you so much for talking about your case. It's a very complicated case. I hope that you do some of the things I told you about. I think if there was a thing with the criminal charges, I mean, with the sexual charges, you should be able to get a hold of a detective.
Mhm.
So, Melanie is from Ancho, Colorado. Thank you for calling in. Um, uh, so I appreciate people sometimes call at the last minute. But again, rule number one, you get that attorney. Get Vincent W. Davis. He's offering a free consultation. All you have to do is call in 888-888-6582, and he'll talk about strategies to get your kids back and fight CPS. He's the best out there. So call in and get that in there. So with that being said, I'm going to have to end it for tonight. You can come back tomorrow morning again at 10 o'clock, and I'll be live again to talk about it. So somebody that were here tonight, come back tomorrow. I hope, uh, Gabriella, that you come back again and tell me more up to date about things. And I hope that I was able to say some things that I hope you, because you're a really sweet woman, nice woman, and I know how much it means to lose your children. So I've lost a lot in my life, and so I'm hoping that you still continue the fight. I think you still have a case to get your child back. You just got to make your attorneys work hard.
Yeah,
With that being said, I thank uh, Melanie Lilly, who came in late to talk about their case. Good luck with your case tomorrow. Hopefully, it's good news about it there. So, everybody, best of luck in the new year. Much success and much happiness. God bless you all, and thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting and talking to you. Good night.
thank you.